this, and we're launching it next month. I'm very excited about it. And what Touchpoints does is we ask consumers to keep track of their behavior on an app. Tell us, where are you? What are you doing? What media have you been exposed to? What mood and emotion are you experiencing, and who are you with? So you get these 5 different notions of context. You know, what is the context when someone is experiencing a television ad? Are they with their families, or with their parents, or are they all by themselves, are feeling lonely, so they have to go on Facebook to see if there's anybody else out there that they can play with while they're watching a television program. So the whole Touchpoints brings to light the sequencing of events when, you know, consumers are innately cross-platform. We think cross-platform and cross-platform data is really a new thing, but the consumers have been moving across platforms with ease forever. So now we are beginning to have the tools to kind of go outside of the digital world. I totally agree. In digital, you can see journeys, you can see clicks, you can see the path, but going outside of that, from checking your mobile phone first thing in the morning, to getting in the car and driving to work, to getting on your computer at work, to, you know, going out for lunch, and all the way through to end all the way through the day. And the opportunity to see how mood and mindset influences behavior and influences the choices we make in terms of media or activities is really fascinating, and I cannot wait to bring really unique and specific insights about consumer behavior throughout the day, throughout the week, to the Hispanic marketing efforts.
Great. Yeah, and definitely when we look at the market based on trends and behavior and buying behavior, we can get a lot closer to creating an effective total market approach. And I liked how Javier proposed that we incorporate the Hispanic and all the multicultural markets into that approach. So my next question is for all of you, but I'd like to start with Isabela. Your take on how does the total market approach jive with targeting Hispanics specifically?
Well, the total market approach, right, in the best definition, is ensuring that we're reaching multiple facets of a market, right? That's how it all started. It really all started with folks who were just doing multicultural going, hey, don't forget about the entire market. If you're just doing general market, you're missing part of the total market, right? I think that's how it started, right? So how does it jive in terms of understanding the specific category and life cycle of that product and the target that you're going after? Is how is that defined versus the total market? And you know, it really is important to be able to sit and do the plan cohesively and together versus as an afterthought, because then you're kind of playing catch up. Right. So the total market, or the Hispanic market, can be very effectively addressed within the total plan as long as it's not treated as an afterthought.
Right. You know what, I think it's an issue of getting a seat at the table. And when we do the analysis of ROI and the industry's practices, we learned that not all the agencies have an understanding of what the ROI of their efforts are. Creative agencies aren't briefed on how well their campaign turned out. The media agencies have a pretty good seat at the table. So I think total market is really about getting everybody in the room in the very beginning to understand the goals, the metrics, the methods, the reasons why, and putting everybody in the room at the same time and understanding the strategic orientation. I don't know how else you would make advertising today. You know, it's a very diverse country, and you just have to bring the right people in at the beginning, and that's what I think total market is.
And to add to that is bringing the right people, but bringing it with the right process. So starting from the client perspective is taking that responsibility, that ownership to sell it internally. Because at the end of the day, the agencies can want, for best intentions, to have this total market approach, but if internally the clients are not aligned and the brand manager with the multicultural not talking and my budget, your budget, then it's not going to really work. And onto that, we have to start recognizing the importance of doing research in the very beginning, and to treat it not just of Hispanic and Black and, you know, Asian and non-Hispanic or non-multicultural. Really look at the landscape of where your opportunity lies, really dissect it through research. Start there. If you're doing product development, it should start there. If you're already engaged with a brand that is existing, start researching from the very beginning, not as an afterthought, because at the end of the day, if you don't understand the consumer impact at the beginning, you can't carry it through the process. And at the end of the day, you can't always assume that there's one universal truth. So I had a client that they were in a pharmaceutical in another life, and they believed, okay, Hispanic, they're big, we're gonna do it, we're gonna go there. And their way, because it's total market, right? And we have to check that box. But their way of doing it is assuming that where the life cycle of their product was and the category was very different. So in non-Hispanic, they were in the industry for many years. Their objective was to get repeat purchasers. But in the Hispanic side, the category needed to be spoken about. There had to be awareness of forget the brand, the category. And then that's the important thing. You can't forget the consumer insights, those nuggets, because that changes your objectives. And if your objectives change, that should change your strategy. And if your strategy changes, that should change your tactics and the way you talk to them. Because at the end of the day, promotions is just one of the 4 Ps.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up because really numbers and data are not what engage people. Targeting and language aside, what engages people is the message itself, and we've all agreed that the message itself needs to be relevant in order to get that ROI, in order to make sure that whatever efforts you are making are effective. So Lupe, the next question is for you. As a content creator, can you tell us a little bit more about how we engage the market through content?
Yeah, I'm gonna step back a little as far as the model. Talk a little bit about the business model, because the way it currently works, right, and worked for a long time, you have numbers, objectives you have to deliver, and you invest your media based on what those objectives are. As the market has changed, the business model is changing, and so with that, it's not just about the spots and dots, but it's about what else you get from that, right? So and I want to take it back to when media first started. As you remember, soap operas were actually started by soap companies and cigarette companies that were paying for content. That's how it all started. That's why we all have our careers, actually, right? And so we're seeing that cycle finally come full circle in that you're seeing brands become content creators, you're seeing consumers are content creators, and because that is happening, as a marketer, how do you take advantage of that? How do you tap into that okay, well, yeah, I'm going to create content, but we're not talking about a 30-minute commercial here, right? We're actually talking about great entertainment that has to be engaged, where you are delivering something more than just the entertainment platform. So that's how it's evolving. It's like, how do we become better content creators, because we all are now. And again, and we got to leverage our media dollars on how to do it.
I know the answer to this question.
Oh, there you go. Go.
Because you know what? I think the answer is never assume you know the answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Just keep asking the questions every single day. If we get comfortable thinking we got it, we don't have it.
Yeah.
It's really important.
But it's hard for brands to let it go that way. Right.
I wanted to say this because when I worked on the craft business internationally, the target really was women with mouths. So we went so high up. It was so, you couldn't do anything with it. We had no insights, all about women. So, the ability to kind of come down and really think about your brand consumers and what role the brand has in your life, regardless of their ethnic orientation or their language orientation. Just what is this brand doing for them? How does it engage with them?
Especially because we know that demographic is a poor predictor of behavior. And yet we go back to demographic because it's comfortable.
Right.
And easy.
Right. So beyond the comfortable and the easy, Isabella, could you touch upon some of the ways that brands have become innovative in the usage of media beyond just buying media?
I would say digital platforms and social, right, have been an easy way for brands to innovate without too much out-of-pocket risk, right? So I think for years there was a lot, or there probably still is, and maybe you could talk about this because you were specifically a client. A big maybe creative idea that sounds really fun and will generate results, but it could cost a lot of money. So maybe that's not such a good idea. Nowadays there are digital platforms, and especially on social media, and so many things that don't cost a lot of money that I think clients are willing to try, at least some of them.
We did a really interesting study with the Word of Mouth Marketing Association, and we were able to track in analytics, in market mix models, the impact of offline word of mouth, which is another way of just saying brand conversations, and online word of mouth, which is social media and everything, and the interplay between the two. And my conclusion on this study is that 1 + 1 equals like 1,000 because of the amplification effects and the sequencing and the cascade of all these direct and indirect effects that are happening today. It's really important that we stay smart on all this stuff.
I didn't know there was a word of mouth marketing association.
Oh, it is.
That's awesome.
That ROI study
word of mouth
is
didn't
there.
get to me, I guess.
Yeah, the ROI study is on there, and it actually showed how
right.
we measure it. It's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Panel part 2, cocktails tonight. Meb, one last question. I'd like to hear a little bit more about using aggregation of data in order to form some of these predictive models.
So a lot of the work we're doing is, again, stop being so conformist with data, and it's comfortable to just rely on syndicated data, with reported data, but really extend ourselves to push ourselves from a purchasing and behavior perspective, from a integrating social media standpoint, understanding the kind of the holistic view of this consumer audience. I think what you were saying is so key. It starts like once you understand that all these segments are dynamic, they're people, and at the end of the day, let's not forget that we're marketing to people, not to data points, right? So it allows us to really understand what is driving these decisions. So one of our tools, the one I was referencing, Intention Point, does that. And what we're finding when we then integrate it to the category, this juxtaposition of the macro with the micro is really helping us delve deeper into who this audience is. Because as much as I love data, at the end of the day, we have to humanize the data. We have to understand who are these people, because these are the people we sell to.
I was going to say, just to build on that, during my time at Clorox, we actually used a lot of that. So whenever we put the RFPs out to the media planning and buying agencies, that was some of the most interesting and amazing, and where we would actually be able to co-create now with our media partners to do things that are going to be more on target, so you can create more conversation and more word of mouth and so forth. So, yeah.
So I'd like to wrap it up with one last question anybody would like to answer. And we talked a lot about ROI and the fact that we need a better model. I'd like your take on what steps we could take to start building that better model.
Oh, I know. Sorry, it wasn't your study. It wasn't our study. You know what? I want you to just I want you to stay on top of the AHA work in ROI, because we're having a meeting with Nielsen at the end of the month to talk about media inputs into the ROI models. It's really geeky. It's really like Media 500. Nobody really wants to know all the nitty-gritty that could be fixed with the ratings and things like that to go into the models. So there'll be a lot of work done, and then at the end we'll be able to say, Hispanic media is being fairly measured right now up at the national and local level. So stay on that AHA project.
Yeah, could you say they're even apples to apples? It's very different, Hispanic versus.
Right, well, it should be closer than it is.
And another thing is, again, is us pushing the data. I mean, IRI is doing a great job with trying to step it up and saying, okay, I mean, if you go back to how modeling work, it's garbage in, garbage out, because it's all based on variability of information. So if you start off with bad data,